Well, the Cleveland Browns are no strangers to dome ideas. Well, that idea is reared its ugly head back again. We'll tell you if the Haslam's or the cities are the holdup on the whole thing. What is the option for the Cleveland Browns, and will they ever get a dome in Cleveland, Ohio? We've talked about this a lot of times, but I think we might have to go over it one more time. We'll do that and much, much more on this episode of the Locked On Browns podcast.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound LGB on the LOB, the Locked On Browns podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Your host, Jeff Lloyd, at Jeff_LJ_Lloyd, part of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, Monday through Friday, 11 to 1 on YouTube, on-air personality, 92.3 The Fan, barbershop open every Saturday morning on The Fan. Certainly other appearances, a bunch of great Cavs work. I guess, 3 games in 4 days. G. Bush had you covered over there. Make sure you're following at GBush91. And if you're not, certainly get your head examined. We appreciate all of you who make Locked On Browns your first listen every single day. Whether it is for free, always available on your favorite podcast platform. Of course, here on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe, notifications on. Throw some likes on those episodes. Help promote the show for you guys here. And if you got Roku, go ahead. Search Locked On Cleveland Sports. You will find me and G here. You will find G in the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. You will get your Locked On Guards and Cavs coverage as well. Obviously, offseason for the Browns. But this week, NFL Combine Week, one of the biggest weeks of the NFL offseason. We have some things to get to in that genre. You know, the news starts to popping this week about teams' plans, maybe interest in free agents, their own possible trades. We're going to get to all that. We're going to give some thoughts here on what the Browns and the positional groups of Browns should have their eyes on this week in Indianapolis. But the talk is out there again. And here's where it seems to be. And look, the Haslams, you don't get to where you are in life if you're the Haslams without understanding, what works financially, what brings more money, and what doesn't. The city, they may differ, and maybe, a lot of this comes down to as far as, what do we have to give to said investment as opposed to what are you recouping from said investment if we're putting more into it. If you don't know what we're talking about, folks, obviously, it's the age-old story, to dome or not to dome. Look, the city of Cleveland hosted the NFL draft a couple of years ago. That went fantastic. Also, keep in mind, we're talking about, pandemic-like circumstances, and they still knocked it out of the park. Cleveland Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, huge attraction within the city of Cleveland. So why is the question of a dome so integral? Look, first things first, Christmas Eve. We all sat and watched. There weren't many sitting in that stadium on Christmas Eve in -23, whatever it was, in the prime of the day when the sun was out. For the team itself, you never have to worry about, physical conditions, again, from Mother Nature. Your players, it's a lot more consistent track as long as you can get the sod right, like we learned from the Super Bowl. Then you get to the aspects for the city. Look, I don't know if there's a city in America that basically looks at their financials and says, we're good. We're good. Look, you want to host a Super Bowl by building a dome in the city of Cleveland, those chances go exponentially higher. You want to host a Final Four, those chances go exponentially higher. You want to host a college football Final Four, those chances go exponentially higher. There's a chance you could get the Big Ten championship game there as well. You could get a WrestleMania there. And I know if you're not into it or not, but you have no idea what all WrestleMania brings and the financial resources it would pump into a city over a long weekend. I think we're getting to the point here, G, as more and more stadiums get built, and look, there'll always be certain places, where the weather, dominates, that you don't necessarily have to factor that in. But it's just, there's just too much there, positive wise, that even if you go through the negatives, it gives you any pause or hesitation. It just seems like the easiest slam dunk thing to do. And there's nothing but financial positives.
Yeah, it's always been to me, it's always been a no-brainer. I think a lot of times people nowadays are holding on to all these different just traditions. They're holding on to a lot of different things, and I can understand change is a difficult thing for a lot of people, but it just makes too much financial sense. You get a place where you can use that building multiple days out of the year, put you on a VIP type of list as a vendor or a facility for major different things that come to town, whether it be rodeos or derbies or wrestling or car shows or Comic-Cons and or whatever the case it may be. You now open yourself up to getting individuals that can come from all over, visit the city, pour dollars into the city, economically, and it'll boost travel, it'll boost the hotel, hotel capacity. You're now starting to build yourself up into places where people want to be. People might look at this as a destination, and I go look at it at a couple other cities. Minnesota is, they between St. Paul and what Minnesota is doing, guess what they're doing? They have the Twin Cities, and they're able to have all these events, venues inside. Obviously, somebody says, well, Minnesota's not about the same, it's not as cold as it is in Cleveland and Minnesota. I said, but just take the Great Lakes region, Indianapolis, dome, Minnesota, dome. I'm still waiting for the Buffalo Bills to get a dome. They crazy too. You could really do a lot with it, and it's just not. And you brought up a really good point, a really solid point too, was that when you look at these windy games, there's been 2 or 3 games each and every year where nobody wants no parts of that. And to be honest with you, I do the Browns pregame. I do the Browns pregame show every single game day. So I'm gonna tell you, and by the way, Jeff, I start the Browns pregame outside. We are outside every single one of these times, and I'm telling you what, bro, 9 o'clock in the morning, and I'm getting up at 7, and it's as cold as what, man. Nobody's at them games. We got a couple of diehards, trickling in for the Muni lot, and they're all liquored up. they got about 17 drinks in their system, staggering to the stadium to keep themselves warm. But nobody's wanting to sit out there. Get a nice little retractable roof. You may be able to put the roof down some days. Still be able to get some of the stuff that you have right now currently. But at the end of the day, man, a dome makes sense for the players, a dome makes sense for the city, and a dome makes sense for the organization. And I don't know why they haven't done it yet.
But you also get to some other things, G. If the building is closed, you don't got to pay people to clean up when it rains. You ain't got to pay people to clean up when it snows. You ain't worried about trash blowing into this. I mean, there are so many, and yes, it's an exorbitant amount of money, but there are things that you don't necessarily have to do to maintain an indoor facility that you do an outdoor facility. There's just a lot more work to it. But look, we live in a day and age, and look, and this is funny because the amount of times G and I have had these conversations about him going to freeze his butt off for 3 hours on a Sunday morning. And look,
crazy.
Nobody, look, at the end of once in a stinking blue moon. And when I say blue moon, decade, maybe you're like, all right, whatever. No. As the years go on, we become more and more pampered as people. We really have. And to be honest with you, the weather usually is closer and closer into our factor. So you know what you can do? You eliminate that one blue moon where, holy crap, it's going to be negative 23 degrees at kickoff. Nobody wants it. They don't. And then you get into the other things that it can bring. G brought up a bunch of other things. You're talking your Taylor Swift concert, 70,000 people. Taylor Swift will come play Cleveland. But imagine how much more appealing it would be to these big acts knowing you're playing for 70,000 people.
Yep.
Ching, Ching, my friends. We are going to get in here now. What we're looking for, there's some things you look for from NFL Combine Week. We're going to dip into that. Obviously, a lot of it comes from the news, the scuttlebutt. You get a lot more idea of teams' plans, and then our third segment, we're going to start kicking it a little bit to positional groups that the Browns and you fans should have your eyes glued to starting Thursday. Jeff Lloyd, Garrett Bush, your latest Locked On Browns. If you are looking for a delicious treat, but you don't want all of the fat and calories, man, you got to try Built Bar. Look, everybody just went through the holidays. Look, spring's right around the corner, which means summer's right around the corner. You want to look good. You don't want to compromise taste when you're eating something healthy, and that's why you got to try Built. With Built, healthy is actually tasty. Seriously, they are so delicious you won't think they are good for you. Perfect for a New Year's resolution. What makes Built Bar so good? Well, they are covered in 100% real chocolate. Yes, real chocolate. They come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. And now you don't need to wait around to get a box. For years, we've talked about ordering Built Bars at Built.com. Now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today. Walk to the pharmacy section and grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. If you're closer to Sam's Club, run in, grab a 13-bar box with hit flavors, brownie batter, and churro. And guys, you can thank me later.
Welcome back to the Locked On Browns podcast. G. Bush, Jeff Lloyd in the building. Thank you guys for making Locked On Browns your first listen of each and every day. And listen, Combine is coming around. And this is a big time, obviously, for most of the teams in the NFL. Combine here, for the Browns who were terrible for most years, our Combine was our Super Bowl, right? Combine draft talk really permeated the air. But since the Cleveland Browns do have what they believe is a franchise quarterback, they have a lot of positions that are filled in terms of, marquee positions. The Browns need to figure out what they're going to have to do at some of the other positions that do the dirty work, like defensive tackle, linebacker. We talked about safety a lot. We talked about wide receiver. So the Combine is coming up, and this basically is going to be something where the Cleveland Browns can kind of fill some of those positions. Jeff, on Monday, coming up to today, a D-line linebacker. And then we'll get to day 2, which is Tuesday's D-line linebacker day 2. And then you will get the first glimpse also on Tuesday of cornerback, safety, special teams. They're going to be their day 1. Wednesday, D-line linebacker, they'll be on day 3. They kind of stagger this. So you have day 2 on Wednesday for the cornerback, safety, special teamers. And then the first day you'll get to see your quarterbacks will be on that Wednesday as well. They'll have 3 groups in. You'll see quarterback, tight end, receiver, day 1. That's on a Wednesday. And so for the Cleveland Browns, they've made this thing a whole long series. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And usually, generally speaking, they kind of taper off. So by the time you get to next Monday, it'll be day 5 of the running backs and offensive line. So for the Cleveland Browns, I think you'll be up to watching this because you get to see 2 of the positions that the Browns need the most: defensive line and linebacker. And so this class has some guys to watch. You got guys like Jalen Carter. Obviously, he probably will be the number 1 pick if they don't get a quarterback at that position. Jalen Carter. Big fella, 6'3", 310. He is, from the University of Georgia. He just muddies everything up. He's a monster inside. Mozzie Smith is a name that we've talked about over the length of time. We've been watching the draft from Michigan. Adamwade, this guy's his name. I don't know how to spell it. It's pronounced Adatamwa. No, Addy Tomiwa. That's it. Addy Tomiwa. There you go. He's from Northwestern. We're going to have to get you a new nickname, son.
Absolutely.
Gervin Dexter is another guy from Florida. There's a lot of different guys. Brian Breesy. I kind of like. I like Brian Breesy out of Clemson. I like him a lot. Small school guys. You got Jared Clark from Coastal Carolina is a guy Dante Stills from West Virginia. So you got a lot of guys in here that really has some names. MJ Anderson's from Iowa State. These are just some names to look up. DJ Dale from Alabama. These are underknown guys. Zach Pinkins of South Carolina. So you got a lot of guys, and of course Brian Young from Alabama as well. So there's a lot of guys in here. I think the thing you need to keep your eye on for the draft is if you really want them to be successful. Who's this? If you really want the Browns to go after a defensive tackle, it might be important that they might have to do it really rather quicker than later, because I don't think it's a very deep draft inside, but it is a very deep draft on the outside as far as the edge rusher is concerned, Jeff.
Well, one of the things here, and I'm going to start here, is they've done a little bit better this year. Last year, they tried to have these guys do their on-field workouts, but do the bench press before, which was just absolute lunacy, because you had about more than 65% of the guys, I'm not doing both in one day. Absolutely not. And the whole point of the NFL Combine is to try to get these kids to look their absolute best and put them in the best possible position to go in and have the workout of their lives. You don't max out on the bench press and then go put out a physical effort, which is basically it's the most important on-field workout of your entire life. So the stupidity that they did last year with that is over. I don't know if I like it any better that they're going to do the bench press the next day. And I still think you're probably going to get a lot of guys, if they go in there, hammer their workout, going to say, Brian, sitting around to pump weights. You all come down, see me at my school. I'll pump the weights there. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of guys, the way the training is done now, it's done one of two ways. If you've got answers, like the quarterback from Alabama, he's not going to do anything at the combine. Why? Because right now the man is sitting at the Italian restaurant trying to put as much pounds on his body as he possibly can, because that's the biggest concern. So he's not worried about that right now. I'll cut the weight and then go work out at Alabama, where everything's comfortable, structured for him to look the best possibly he can. So the way it is going to work, first day of workouts will be Thursday. You're going to get the defensive line and the linebackers. You'll get two groups. For the Browns, obviously heavy interest will be on that first day. The next day, you're going to get your defensive backs, which is going to be another huge day. You get all the passing guys, quarterbacks, wide receivers, tight ends on Saturday, and then you're going to roll on with your running backs and your offensive linemen to close it out. Browns are going to be fixated everywhere. Obviously, that first day on Thursday, you're going to be pulled up. You're going to be locked in. They're going to be dialed in to watch these big boys up front. Everybody, well, I think they'll handle it through free agency first. Well, that hasn't happened yet, and you have not signed anybody yet. So right now, the only belief you will have if you're the Cleveland Browns to fix your defensive line is through the draft. Until names start getting to paper, the draft is going to be your only resource. But speaking of free agency and names starting to get on the paper, this is one of the other things you start to get out of the NFL Combine. The only way I can describe it, and you probably get to everybody. You remember the old coffee clutch your mom had with the other moms in the neighborhood? And no, we were just having cake and coffee. No, they were sitting, spilling, talking about everything and everyone. And let me tell you something, folks. That is exactly what goes on in Minneapolis. Who's getting extended? Who's not getting tagged? Who's getting traded? Who's not getting re-signed? All these things start bubbling through the surface in Minneapolis. Go a little bit deeper on that. Jeff Lloyd, Garrett Bush, your latest Locked On Browns, and we appreciate you all for making us your first listen every single day.
Yeah, Jeff, welcome back to the Locked On Browns podcast. Make sure you subscribe to the Locked On Browns podcast on YouTube. Just hit that notification bell. Make sure you hit the notification bell so you know when we go live. We will also tell you to follow at Locked On Browns on Twitter. We also post all our episodes up there as well. Jeff, when Combine season comes around, we start talking about those different individuals, who's on the block, who's not, who are guys looking for at certain positions, and what guys are trying to show their hands a little bit. For me, I think this Deshaun Watson kind of spoke on this a little bit. He talked about, with Quincy Avery in terms of saying, hey, look, I'm going down. I'm going to holler at DeAndre Hopkins, just hang out. He doesn't, he didn't really say anything too crazy about how he wanted to go about that. But, the crazy thing about it, though, Jeff, is, look, he said, I'm going to mention his name, And those back deals get done usually around this time. Deshaun Watson last year, when did that take place? Around this time in the combine. They went out there, they went to the combine. Andrew Berry was doing his due diligence, and he stayed persistent on that. So my thing is, I wouldn't be surprised to see a guy like a receiver. When you're talking about a DeAndre Hopkins, possibly talking about compensation for him. Brandon Cooks is a name we've heard about a lot. We'll figure out what's going on with guys like Michael Thomas. We'll figure out what's going on with guys like Bobby Wagner. All these big price names, the free agents, all those guys, teams that have those guys, their agents will be there. They'll be around, and they're going to be doing a lot of chirping, trying to figure out deals and compensation for some of these pieces. And if you're the Browns fans, I think that more likely you will see a receiver move rather than, I would say, I don't think you're going to see a high price trade for a defensive lineman. I don't think so. I think they'll go draft. I think you get some depth, and I think they'll be looking at some of the other free agents that have come in that are serviceable and try to roll over some of the defensive tackles. Edge rusher, I would see an edge rusher possibly in this draft. I think the edge rusher class is deep. I think they may look at that. And then finally, I think they will look at some depth in the secondary, as always, because they love corners. And they may take a look at safety or take a look at something like that. But for me, I think most of the chatter will come in terms of, can the Browns get a guy like an Amari Cooper or get somebody like that to go with the offense as far as is a trade or something like that during the combine.
With this front that we're talking about here, here are some questions maybe, and I'm not saying we're going to get full-fledged answers to at this point, but, some things as far as, seeing which way a situation could possibly work out. John Johnson III. Is there interest from another team in the NFL? Obviously, a lot of talk about, where the Browns and John Johnson III are. Maybe it's not working out for both parties. I'm saying as far as, and look, again, some of this has to be put on the Browns themselves. What you signed John Johnson, the player that you signed in John Johnson III, you've never really allowed him to truly be that versatile type of piece. So the fact that maybe, you feel like you're not getting all that was invested into it, well, it's because he's not necessarily doing everything you asked him to do when you brought him here. You asked him to be this versatile guy who was really smart, could make plays on the flies, and sometimes he thinks faster than the offense he's going against. But you start to hear, could John Johnson be traded? Is there interest for John Johnson to be traded? What are the Browns' plans with a guy like John Johnson? The other thing is we start to hear about, potential markets for players. Obviously, there are a lot of free agent defensive tackles that are, set to hit the market. As we all know, Daron Payne most likely looks like he's going to get franchise tag. The 4 guys, obviously from the Philadelphia Eagles, what are the financial terms there? Hargrave looking to maybe get the biggest deal of any defensive tackle here. You start to hear about, we're hearing reports are 3 years, $50 million, things of that nature. So-and-so from said NFC West team could be available for a day 3 pick. This is the chatter that really, really starts to come at it of this week. Mary Kay Cabot must follow this week. Brad Steinberg, absolute. These guys have absolute must follows this week. The information will start to pour on out about what, not necessarily what exactly the plans are, but about, basically who will be in play. Okay. The Browns in 2020, they got to that combine. What do they do within first 2 days there? They got deals done, got deals basically agreed upon between Jack Conklin and also Austin Hooper that set the preface. It set the, basically what was going to be the success of the 2020 season. So there's a lot of work done here. Everybody thinks it's going, just sitting there with a stopwatch and a pad, watching some kids go out and make plays. There's a lot. It's not just the draft. This is basically the kickoff of the NFL offseason with everybody in one place and everybody obviously trying to get to the point where they can improve their franchise, to take the next step. A lot of legwork goes into it. A lot of schmoozing. I have had plenty of friends that I'll wake up. I will literally wake up in the morning to 4, 5, 6 text messages of, hey, so-and-so was with so-and-so from that franchise, and grabbing a martini at 1:00 in the morning. But there was a reason, that something was going on there. Those people were, together for a reason. Possible discussions between agents, players, obviously front office personnel. It is, and again, it truly is the coffee clutch. Everything gets spoken of, everything gets turned over, and heck, they might start, picking on each other for their outfits. It's just the way it goes. It is a gab fest like no other. And again, one of my favorite weeks of the year, with workouts starting on Thursday through Sunday. As we start to get to know the 2023 draft class a little bit more. But a lot of legwork goes into this, G, as far as setting up free agency ahead of time.
Yeah, I think that it's one of the parts of the progression. They're setting up the free agency, setting up their boards. They may go to the combine and look at a guy and thought he should have performed better, and then they have to reallocate resources and say, well, listen, we might want to go after a free agent because we don't think we can get a good enough individual at this position at when we're picking in the draft. So, it'll be exciting to, see some of the guys who do flash a little bit. There's always some guys that are going to go to the draft, go to the combine and perform better than what we thought they would. And those names automatically are boosted above. But there are some really good football players that are going to go and not have a great day running, have a not great day on the field. And then they're going to be really good football players that could potentially slide in the draft to you. So that's why you have to do your due diligence and why this is a very big weekend for the Browns, even though they don't have a first-round draft pick.
Look, folks, I know the Guardian spring training is back. I know the Cavs, big win last night. I believe there's 2 at Boston this week, a back-to-back. I get it, but, you're a diehard Browns guy. This is a big, big football week for your Cleveland Browns, Andrew Berry, Kevin Stefanski, et al. So we got to here. Look, the Dome talk is never going to go away until one day there's a definitive answer. If there's a possibility and there's a will, there's most certainly should be a way. Starting to get to know the 2023 draft class. We will all go through this. I've been on it deep. G's maybe a tad bit behind, but G's also got the problem of he's got to cover 3 professional sports teams, whereas I can devote my time to just one. Makes it a little bit easier. I'm over here with like the 1 course load. I'm the guy walking out the door by 10:30. G's the guy there till 3, and then you usually got to stay after a little bit. So we got to that as well. And of course, just the business end of the NFL Combine, and there is a lot to it, but it should be exciting week. He is Garrett Bush, Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, 11 to 1, Monday through Friday. Also, you can check out G on the Barbershop Saturday morning at 92.3 The Fan. Many opportunities to catch G over there as well. Certainly been doing a ton of post-game coverage for the Cavs, so make sure you check that all out. And if you don't know where to find the information, you should probably start by following at GBush91. Myself, Jeff Lloyd, at Jeff_LJ_Lloyd. Show itself at Locked On Browns follow back account. Appreciate you all for making Locked On Browns your first listen. Always free, always available on your favorite podcast platforms. YouTube, subscribe, put those notifications on, throw some likes on the episodes for you boys. We continue to pump out as much great content as we can for you all. And if you got Roku, search Locked On Cleveland Sports. You'll catch G and I here. You'll catch G and the crew from Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. You'll get your Cards coverage. You will get your Cavaliers coverage as well. That's that for now, kids. All that being said, this is your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound LGB on the LOB. Let's go Browns.